Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee Books and Rain, where I have just finished my coffee. We are having a sad moment here, but we are talking about that was funny, a really good book. I had a little bubble there, so I apologize, but a really good book that I found fascinating. And yes, it was morbid. Yes, it was a little gruesome. Did it have some humor? Yes. Should I have been laughing? Maybe not. I don't know, but we're going to talk about it. And it's called The Resurrectionist by A. Ray Dunlap. This book was cool, and Okay, so in a past life, before I got my master's degree in English literature, I started my bachelor's degree in clinical laboratory sciences. My original intent with my degree and my degree program was that I was going to aim for a working in the lab in the hospital, running the tests, hematology, phlebotomy, immunology, did all of that sort of thing. So had all of those classes, did all of that, was working in the hospital doing my internship when I realized this is not my jam. I am not an introvert. I need to be able to talk to people and have a dialogue. Well, went back to campus, talked to my advisor. I said, I really feel like maybe I want to write. And he's like, oh, you could write manuals. And I was like, oh, no. And I walked across campus to one of my favorite teachers. And from there, I switched my degree to English. Now, I was going to take that clinical laboratory sciences degree into forensics. My ultimate goal with that was I love problem solving, putting things together, finding the pieces that fit and don't fit. I love that. I love being able to, I love escape rooms. I love finding the pieces that work and don't work. All of that is just absolutely fascinating for me. So I think that's why this book was so cool in probably the most morbid sort of ways. And we're going to talk about that now. Now, this book is expected December 24th of 2024. So I may release this either right before or right after. So it may be the 23rd or maybe the 27th. Whatever day you get it, you're welcome. But I will recommend that you go out and find it. And so let's dive into this story in all the best ways. In the tradition of the Alienist and a love story, a decadently macabre, dark, and twisty Gothic debut set in 19th century Scotland, when real-life serial killers Burke and Hare terrorize the streets of Edinburgh, as a young medical student is lured into the illicit underworld of body snatching. Historical fiction, true crime, and dark academia intertwine in a harrowing tale of murder, greed, and grisly origins of modern medicine for readers of Lydia Kang, M.L. Rio, Sarah Perry, and C.E. McGill. Edinburgh, Scotland, 1829, naive but determined James Willoughby has abandoned his posh, sheltered life at Oxford to pursue a lifelong dream of studying surgery in Edinburgh, a shining beacon of medical discovery in the age of the New Enlightenment. The city's university offers everything James desires, except the chance to work on a human cadaver. For that, he needs to join one of the private schools in the Surgeon's Square at a cost he can't afford. In desperation, he strikes a deal with Einerin. I was trying to read it, and I know I'm not pronouncing it correctly. McKinnon, a dashing young dissectionist with an artist's eye for anatomy and a reckless passion for knowledge. Nye promises him to gain the surgical experience he craves, but it doesn't take too long for James to realize he's made a devil's bargain. Nye is also a body snatcher, and James has unwittingly become his accomplice. Intoxicated by Nye and his noble mission, James rapidly descends into the underground ranks of the Resurrectionist, the body snatchers infamous for stealing fresh corpses from the churchyards to be used as anatomical specimens. Before he knows it, James is caught up in a life-or-death scheme as rival gangs of snatchers compete in a morbid race for power and prestige. James and Nye soon find themselves in the crosshairs of a shady pair of unscrupulous opportunists known as Burke and Hare, who are dead set on cornering the market no matter the cost. These unsavory characters will do anything to beat the competition for bodies, even if it's cold-blooded murder. So we're going to stop there, but I think that summary, even though I feel like it gives you almost a little too much, really lays everything out for you. I mean, really, really does. This book was, like I said, gruesome in all the best ways, but almost also in a very clinical sort of way, which I guess is another reason I liked it. We first enter into this story as Mr. James Willoughby is pulling up in this sort of carriage on this coach, and he kind of picks this first sort of kind of inn, this tavern, if you will, where there's rooms available for board. And off he goes to the Hook and Anchor, I believe it is, or something of that nature. And he goes in and he immediately pretty much realizes that there's no porter to come get his suitcase, which he's used to having a porter come get a suitcase. So now he's got to drag his huge trunk in, clunk it and clunk, clunk, clunk. And he nearly drops it on another student, which ultimately becomes one of his friends named Charles. Well, he quickly makes some pretty good friends with some of the other students in the college in Edinburgh. Well, he also quickly realizes that if he actually wants to have any sort of eyes-on experience or even hands-on experience, the Edinburgh University is not going to offer him that surgical, hands-on dissection work that he's going to need if he wants to be a true surgeon. So he then finds there's this other college that he needs to figure out a way to pay tuition for. So he does kind of start just going to some of like the demonstrations before he's not going to the classes yet. He's just kind of going to some of the like the shows, you could almost call them, where the teacher is dissecting a forearm or dissecting a torso or something like that. So, Y incision, and opens it up and everybody like passes out or faints. Well, there's one particular one James goes into, and James ends up pretty close to the front. So the teacher's like, well, you seem to have a fairly kind face. You seem as though like you're not just here to gawk. You seem as though you're actually like here to learn, and you've seem as though he was like, I can read you pretty well. I feel like, I want you to come up here and be my assistant. So he comes up and he stands next to the doctor. And so he tells him, he's like, I want you to do XYZ. And so James, even though he's nervous, he's actually really studied for this. And even though he's never taken a scalpel to skin, he does what the doctor asks him to do. And the doctor is very impressed because he does it perfectly. And so throughout that particular session, he continues to assist the doctor with this particular demonstration, so thus proving that he actually is quite skilled and adept at not only following the instruction, but actually performing some of these works on at least cadaver-like bodies, or cadaverous bodies. I don't want to say like, because that makes them seem like they might be asleep, and they're definitely not just asleep. So, after the demonstration is more or less done, James goes to Nye, and Nye is more or less like the teacher's assistant. He is like the TA. He's like the professor's right hand. And so he's the one who cleans up and probably grades the papers and all that sort of stuff. He's the true, probably paid, like, assistant. And Nye's like, no, we don't have any, like, there's no, you just have to figure out, either have to pay your tuition or what have you. And he's like, well, I'm just over at, like, the Hook and Anchor if you ever, and then Nye's like, oh, you're at the Hook and Anchor. Well, hey, so maybe we should talk. And so from that point, it gets kind of like, hey, wait a minute, you're over there? Yeah, I might be able to talk to you about something. We may be able to work out something. So Nye then convinces James. He's like, okay, I'll pay you, I can get you a discount on tuition if you will do this particular task for me anytime. So next to your hotel, next to your little bed and breakfast or wherever you're renting, next to that place where you're renting, if you see next door is the graveyard, and if you see when the guy goes out into the graveyard, I want you to put a lamp in your window. And the guy's like, okay. He's like, well, we think he's in cahoots with body snatchers, so we want to time it so that way we can see if he is just disappearing when they're, like, present. He's like, oh, okay, I got you. And, well, let's just say he's not on the up and up about it. Let's just say the truth comes to light pretty quick, because within a fairly short period of time, and like maybe it's a few weeks, who knows, James finds himself with Nye throwing a couple rocks at his window, because one night the graveyard keeper, he goes out at an odd time. So James is like, oh man, I gotta put the light out, like, on the windowsill, like, now. And so all of a sudden, like, he hears tapping on his window. He opens his window and Nye is down on the ground. He's like, man, what are you doing down there? Well, Nye has been in the graveyard this particular night. And so, of course, James is so mad. He's like, you have been grave robbing. And he's like, how dare. I have not been robbing anybody. I have been body snatching. I don't take any of their personal effects. Like it's different. He leaves the personal effects. All of the jewelry and all of the personal items are all left behind. The body is gone. And so this is where James discovers that, hey, if he joins these people, he might be able to make a little bit more money. So Nye starts to talk to him. Well, let's just say they go to drop off. Well, this is just within the first 25%, so I don't feel like it's spoilers, because things really start to snowball after that, and it really becomes pretty action-packed, lots of things going on. I mean, again, I thought this book really, really well done. I was riveted, and I could probably continue to just go ahead and keep spilling more about this book and giving you play-by-plays, but I do actually want to save some for you all to read. So I would love if you go out, find this book, A. Ray Dunlap. Is that right? Dunlap? I want to make sure I get that last name right, because I think I'm going to need a physical copy on my bookshelf. Right now, I just have an ebook on my phone, and even though I like ebooks just fine, there is something about having physical copies on my shelf that I can, like, hold that I love so very much. So, working on getting more physical copies. Love them. But with all of that being said, I think I'm going to wrap it up here, because I've kind of, let's just say, spilled my guts. There is a moment where there's some guts in jars. But let's just say I've told you quite a bit to, I think, lead you to a point where I hope you're interested in this book. If you like a little macabre, if you like the dark and twisty, this is probably something that could be up your alley. It's not supernatural, so don't imagine that these bodies are going to come to life. Like, that's not what kind of book this is. This is more of like that horror gothic where you are body snatching, you are taking them apart and dissecting them, but you're not putting them back together to make maybe like a monster. You've just maybe got jars with maybe eyeballs in them or things of that nature. You've probably got a lot of squishy bits in a very odd laboratory. So those are things that are probably going to happen, which can make anyone a little bit squeamish. Until next time, I hope that at least some of these books on this channel you find appealing, or at least you find me slightly funny, interesting. I don't know. Maybe you find me absolutely weird, and that's okay too, because sometimes I am. But until next time, I want to thank you so much for being here, for liking. I hope you'll subscribe. I hope you'll stick around. I know I don't say that in every like episode. I just don't always think about it because, again, my channel is kind of small, and I guess I'm not a career YouTuber. I don't think I plan to be, but man, I love being here. I do. I love doing book reviews. I think they're just so much fun, and plus I love reading books. So thank you so much, and I will see you guys on the next page. Have a great one.